A very good afternoon to you and welcome to another edition of Conversation Oasis. This is the weekly free-flowing discussion program which comes to you every week at this time from the Kasviskeidas restaurant here in the centre of Turku. I'm your host David Mawby, and first of all, apologies for last week. We had a few technical issues, but now we really do have the first programme of Conversation Oasis for 2018. With me, of course, is our great host here, Jalal, who's made this all possible. And then we're joined by Erkka, who is an engineer, very good with radio things, I'm told, as we can see, the man with the headphones. Next to him, we have Eero, who is a student of comparative religion. And we also have Ronja, who is a student as well. And then we have Janne, who studies...
I study Russian language,
Ruski muzikia, which we're not going to speak today because I think we've all agreed that this program is in English. Now, we have at least one person here who, as far as I know, has never been on the program before, and that's our man with the headphones, Erkka. You may know this guy, folks, because he was part of an Occupy movement here in Turku about a couple of years ago. Just put us in the picture, please. What did you do then?
We were having a camp in the market square of Turku for 1 month.
This is very reminiscent of the Occupy Wall Street and the Occupy London things, isn't it?
I don't understand the word reminisce.
This reminds of...
it was part of the movement, yes.
Yeah.
Inspired of them.
Tell me, what did you succeed? What did you achieve?
At least we had a media attention, so there was television and journalists were interested about our ideas and our views, and we had a lot of chat with the citizens, so people were coming, and so because due to the law, when we have this kind of meeting there, we had to have it on all the time, otherwise we would have to go away. So we had a 24/7 how do you say?
We'll help you. Go on.
Yeah,
say it in Finnish and we'll say it in English.
Yeah, like miehitis.
Yeah, it was manned 24/7.
Yeah, manned. Yeah.
Or womaned,
and
whatever.
People came, and there was a lot of also like drug addicts, and we gave them support and talked with them, and there were a lot of citizens angry about some things, and we were talking about them and giving flyers. And
when did that happen?
2011.
Oh.
Now that was 7 years ago. Do you still think that method of protest can do something 7 years later?
Yeah, for sure.
How?
We call it, it's called like a public meeting in Finnish law, and that's like we had a right for it, and I think it's a really good way to, if you really want to have a, how do you say, easy to start kind of like movement, like just go to the market square and put your tent up. They might ask you to move, which they have some kind of right to do, but at least we had possibility to be there for 1 month. They took our tent once, but we slept under a bench. So,
what was the reaction of the police, who are obviously those who took your tents away?
Yeah, they were actually. For example, there was once one guy coming with a knife there, so police was took him away in 3 minutes. So I really respect the police in that matter, but also there was some. I think I like the way police were cooperating with us. Of course, it was not perfect, and sometimes they do things that are not legal.
Such as?
Like they believe some authorities that move the tent, even though it's they don't have the best knowledge of what's legal and not. So.
No, only police, yes. Why should they know the law?
But I was satisfied with the police. I respect them. I think they did good work.
Janne, do you remember this?
No, I actually don't. What was the name of the movement?
Torikokous.
Yeah.
Occupy.
Torikokous Turku.
I don't think so.
You don't remember the Occupy movement?
When was it?
Yeah,
Occupy Wall Street, Occupy...
Yeah, I remember Occupy movement, but not in Turku.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe you were.
Probably I wasn't here.
It was December.
Ronja seems to excite you. Well, what do you remember about it?
I remember having it, but I don't. I remember some things, but I don't think I was that active that
You probably
time.
were not in Finland. You were in Denmark or somewhere else. No.
I might have visited.
Mm.
I remember some things that like a tent in the middle of the square, but
Yeah,
but sadly I don't think I participated that much.
I think I walked by.
You walk by. You're one of the great majority then, Eero. Yeah.
But could we do something like that maybe again?
Yes.
I would be really interested.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's your right.
Yeah.
But people don't know their rights. This is the
That's
problem,
true.
and people at the mainstream media plays down protest. I can think of countless instances where there have been mass demonstrations by non-mainstream political organisations that get absolutely no coverage either in Helsingin Sanomat, let alone Yleisradio anymore. And how do you actually get public attention? If you say, right, we're against Parkkitori, which is this horrible thing to dig up the beautiful square of Turku and put a car park there, and it'll never be the same again, believe me. And how can you protest against that if people have no idea that they can actually do something by going in the street?
Now you're asking me.
I'm asking everyone.
Well, I think everybody knows their right that they can protest. Everybody knows it, but I'm not sure if everybody are convinced by the method.
But they might also be afraid that they'll get into problems if they go in the street. So maybe
For a street protest, we don't need any permission.
You need
Is
the
it just-
permission.
Okay.
You need to let the Polish know that you are doing it.
Mm.
Just that, but
Yeah.
no any other.
You don't ask for anything. You just
Okay.
let them know. But that's how I remember it.
Yeah, that's the way it goes. I mean, it's the same if you some reason find yourself in the middle of Finland, in say the city of Jyväskylä, and you want to demonstrate for human rights or gay rights, for instance, as an example. You just go ahead and do it, and the police have to come and protect you, which is you need that in Jyväskylä. Yeah.
I have a question. Don't you think that the street protest is the term for that is over? We don't need really street protest. Everything is like in internet and cyber life. So is I think more effective, because if you want to put you bring new things to the culture and let people see new things, what they need and how it changes their life if we help each other. So internet is new thing and new language. New possibility. We should use that. That's a street protest and mass people going there and showing their anger or frustration. It doesn't help anymore. So we are actually wasting our tax money. So police comes there, other people come there. There are a lot of problems. But social media, internet campaign, like in internet.
So you mean we should leave it to the neo-Nazis to protest in the street and set up vigilante groups to make sure that people who look a little bit different are kept under control? I would like to challenge you, Jalal, on this because
neo-Nazis are afraid, and probably that's why they use forces, and that's why they need the street to
the
use their
ideology
forces.
is for uses
Yeah,
force.
but anyway, they need the street because they don't understand the new life. They don't understand the modernity. So,
I think they're actually very skillful in the internet and so
Yeah,
on.
using
They
social
really
media.
know how to use it.
But they know how to use it, but still they don't understand the
That's
new
the main
life.
point.
That it doesn't matter how much you fight. The world is a small globe now, and the races are going to get mixed, and people are going to disregard these differences, but moving for the future. They don't understand this part of modern life, and that's why they are still using the very historical or old method for fighting.
Yeah, but isn't that more like giving the face for the movement? And then that's why I think the live
But
a real live street
but how
action
much?
is important too.
Don't they go hand in hand? Aren't you two actually approaching it from different angles? Jale, what you're saying is yes, let's use the internet. I say yes, let's use the internet to encourage people to go out and protest and be seen. Because if you are not seen, except if you're seen on this little telephone which everyone is addicted to, which is not banned even though it's the worst drug than alcohol, it's if people are seen to demonstrate, then you make an impression. And it's at the end of the day, even the mainstream media, which is controlled by those who rule us, they cannot ignore you forever.
May I say something?
Let's give Johnny a chance now.
How far would you be willing to go? How long would you stay on the street to make some cause happen?
Well, it would depend on the weather in Finland, wouldn't it?
The cause.
The cause. It's like today. And incidentally, listeners, as we walked to the studio, it said it was -4 with a windshield factor making it feel like -14. I'm not so sure I want to be in the central square, but put that down to age and grey hair. But how long? For as long as it is necessary. And I think, Erika, you did this in the summertime, didn't you?
No, it was December.
It was December. Well, how did you combat the natural elements?
I went to the local shop and bought some woolen underwears. And I had a really good this kind of winter jacket. So it's just like we were. Last winter we were 3 weeks out in Lapland, at winter time, trekking and sleeping in a tent. So it's a matter of clothes. I learned that just put 3 thick woolen sweaters on, and you can stay out -15. You can hang around outside. That's I test that. That's test.
Well, there we have the recipe for legal protests here on the streets of Turku. Okay. We've talked about the theory of this. What is there to protest about today? Any ideas, Ronja?
What is there to protest about?
Yeah, life's happy, isn't it? If you believe all the OECD statistics and the propaganda broadcast night after night on all the TV channels, the Finns are the happiest people on the planet. This is a great place to live in. It is too, and I'm not being sarcastic, folks. But I mean, so there's nothing to protest. Let's all go home.
I actually really disagree with Jalal, because I think it's important that we take the streets back. I think it's important that we live in the city. We don't live in the internet. That's not reality. The reality is where we walk every day. It's the streets. But so I think it's important that we actually shape the city according to what we would like to see, how we want to interact with each other. So I think it's really important that we actually physically do these things.
While you're out there in the street, younger generation their head is into a smartphone and walking by, and they don't even see you. But what you are doing is for all their conservative politicians.
No, I'm doing it for everyone. I make soap bubbles in the spring and in the summer because I want everyone to.
Older people are conservative. Yeah, of course, older people are conservative, and younger generation head is in a.
So we have to make them lift their heads, so we can do something that's so exciting that they will actually, face the reality. It can be also cool.
Should we demonstrate it? If you are contacting the youngsters, I can beatbox at the same time. Okay.
I'm contacting the youngsters now.
You're telling your goodie.
No. This is true.
That would be a great idea.
But do you know there are a lot of street protests, but there are not that much support for those. But we were just talking about conspiracy theories, but they are all in internet. Which one is more stronger? Most of younger generation are talking about conspiracy theories, which is fake and a lot of bad things in it. But how many people really support this kind of movements that is more
than you think.
I don't think it's the most important question to ask, actually. I think it's more important to actually do it and then to find out what is necessary that we can.
You see, if you are given a democratic right, the right to protest, yes, it must be used. It's a constitutional right. But I find, and history teaches us this, if you do not use your constitutional rights, you find them being whittled away. And whittled, sorry, it's a very old English word. They're gradually pushed away. Use it or lose it.
Yeah.
Is my motto on this.
Maybe the most important thing about a demonstration is the feeling of being together and belonging to a cause. That much I agree, but then I don't believe it's such an efficient way of doing things.
Well, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think?
Syria, I mean,
Fight against of each other and using mass and physical strength behind you. More people behind you, more physical strength you have. That's for me is over. It doesn't just work. But if you want mindly and thoughtfully to be active, so then there is.
One could argue that the system itself is violent, perhaps not physically, but let's take a case in point. For instance, if you are mentally ill, mentally challenged, and you are unemployed, you are now going to be punished by this government for being what you are. You will have 4% of your unemployment benefit taken away because you cannot work, and because the criteria for giving pensions to people with mental illness have been shrunk, they've been restricted for over the years to the time now where it is very difficult for a person who is mentally ill to get a disability pension. That is the system being violent.
Yes.
Yeah, I understand, Jalal, that it's good that you mentioned America, and then there was talking about Syria, but here in Finland, for example, Turku Pride was a demonstration last summer, and it was so awesome, so much people, and after being there, hearing that the time of demonstration on the streets is over, I just feel you don't know what you're talking about. But I agree, no force, and I agree also with you, was it Janne?
Yes.
Yeah, that it has to be like my demonstration and my protest is all about love, and it's like showing the force, but not by using the force, but like standing
You have to use
up.
force.
You use your force, saying like I'm here, I have rights, and I'm gonna stand here as long as it's needed to change this thing.
Yeah, Eero, come in. Yes.
Yeah, and what she said is also important because that's one reason for public demonstrations also to remind the grand audience that we have that right.
Yeah.
So that they don't forget it, and so that we won't be in that situation when we find it that it is actually illegal to do that.
Yeah.
So for that reason we should
Supposing there were no pride marches, as is the case in Russia, and as is in the case in Muslim countries, what then? Gay people, for instance, have had to really fight for their rights. And nothing has been gained without a fight. No right that you have to strike, no right you have for Isus Loma, for Father's Loma, or anything has ever happened without a struggle. They're not going to give anything to you unless you go out and demand it. History teaches us that.
And the system is violent in that sense that if you don't know what your right is, you won't have that right.
Yeah.
Eventually.
And if you are only doing it in the internet, people don't meet each other.
No.
So I think meeting in real life in the streets, it's also really important need for people, and fulfilling that need at the same time as putting some good cause forward.
Basic human
And
need.
ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Conversation Oasis on Radio Robin Hood, but I want to be fair to Jalal, because Jalal, I understand, for instance, you want to bring people together, and you do a wonderful job of this through Club Cadis and so on. And so I'm going to give you I think it's about time you had the right to reply.
regarding what Erka said, that meeting is very important, but not being against of something, being pro of something. Fighting, I don't believe in it. I don't do that anymore. But being pro of something, spreading the love, as you said, these are the mostly my thing, and I think it's about the future also. Not fighting, not against of something, but showing the most important and priority of human life in the future.
Silence.
So we must. I just gave the station ID, and just to remind you, this is a conversation at Oasis, where I'm joined by Janne, I'm joined by Ronja, Eero, Erka, and Jala, yours truly, David, and we've been discussing: is it worth protesting? Come on, I want to hear some more about this. This has been quite lively. What would you personally go out and protest for or against? I'll give Janne a second thought. Ronja.
I actually I've been really interested lately in folk dancing, and I would love to do folk dancing, for example, in the market square, because I think it's one of the best ways for people to get together and to feel connected, and it's like a really natural high where you don't need anything.
That's very beautiful.
So like to get like fiddles and horn sections and all this, and like maybe like a piano and a roll, and then we can all just dance there. So these kind of
I
things
will be I will be the first one.
That's such a wonderful idea. And honestly, I think that must have happened in Finland at least 100 years ago, 200 years ago. You'd like to bring that tradition back,
yeah.
Definitely, yes. Well, if the powers that be, excuse my bad cold, folks, then maybe we get somewhere with that. But maybe we should go and promote that. Eero, what would you demonstrate about?
Definitely against the active model thing now on the employment.
This is the government policy to force people to go and talk to the authorities about their
I like
employment.
what Ronja said. It's maybe we should also remember that it's not always about protesting, but also about celebrating. So
yes,
that would mean a total different approach to occupying the streets and
carnival. I think they call it
carnival.
Yeah. I mean, that's what they call it in Notting Hill, West London, and it's what they call it in Brazil and across the Latin world as well. Yes. People change their colours. Well, I can tell you in carnivals.
Oh, spring carnival.
Spring carnival. So should Turku have a spring or a spring? Yes, a May carnival. I mean, in Sweden they dance around the maypole and so on. You know, wouldn't that be? And that would bring out all these. Various groups. Come on, I can see Erka here, our great the activist we have here today, really thinking this over. Now, what's your impression of this?
Yeah, it's a hard decision, but like the best I can get now, I would really want to change the manipulation we are doing or letting the companies do on the streets, on these billboards and big huge screens. So I would like to change that to give people message that will make their life better and like support life on Earth. Maybe this kind of good quotes or something instead of like eat this shit food or like go take an aeroplane and go far away or something like.
Sometimes
like
a good
give
idea
time
when
to
it's
your
cold
family
outside.
or like be honest
Obey.
and like
obey. Be born, grow up, but consume, obey, and die. I think is the way it goes. The one thing that interests me that having lived in Tampere for so many years, that there you actually have public billboards where people can go up and put up posters for gigs and for public events and so on. I understand, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that here in Turku that is not allowed, and that, for instance, here in the restaurant here, but I can put a note up by the door. But if I go and try to put it up somewhere, anywhere in a public space in Turku, I can be arrested. I consider that, if it's true, correct me if I'm wrong, as a breach of the Finnish constitution. which guarantees freedom of speech. And I get the impression that when events are held in Turku, they seem always to be in shopping centres and similar venues.
That's very common, yeah.
And also I'd like to put a word in here, and this is to answer my own question. I am really, really glad that even guys who love skateboarding, which is something I haven't been able to practice for many decades now, that they have actually gone out and done something, built their own skate parks and so on, against the wish of the authorities. And another thing I love street art as well, and I think that should be encouraged as well.
I feel that it's like when you said that against the will of the authorities, I feel it's like the healthy relationship between people is not always ask the permission of you. Of course, you have to respect others, but for example, you have to sometimes do things against others' will if you feel it's right, and you like if they don't understand your rights and your needs. Not always ask for permissions. If the people don't understand your view, like, and they are not even maybe willing to understand it, they are so fixed on their own.
As long as it doesn't hurt anybody.
Yes, we have to have these kind of healthy boundaries.
In other words, I may not agree with what you say, but I'm ready to defend that right for you to say it until the death. And quoting the infamous French philosopher Voltaire. And I think, folks, that's where we have to leave it because our time is up. I really would like to thank Jalal for hosting us and putting up with us here, and to Erka, Eero, and to Ronja and Janne for your great contributions. Conversation Oasis returns same time next week, and until then, bye, and love, peace and harmony.